Hello, my name is Margie Carroll, and I'm going to share with you my community resource project. I chose to do my project on a book providing an in-depth look into binge eating disorder. The book title is Binge Eating Disorder, The Journey to Recovery and Beyond by Amy Pershing with Shavis Turner. Amy Pershing, she, her, LMSW, ACSW, is the founding director of BodyWise, which is the first BED-specific treatment program in the United States. She is also president of the board of the Center of Eating Disorders in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Amy has a strengths-based and trauma-informed approach to her work, as well as over 35 years helping clients heal the deeper issues related to eating disorders. I put a couple of links for her programs in my slides. And then Shavis Turner also worked on the book. She's an eating disorder and weight discrimination activist. She's the founder of the Binge Eating Disorder Association, BEDA, which recently merged with NEDA. And she's a passionate advocate. She co-facilitates the Alliance Virtual Larger Bodies Individuals support group. Binge eating disorder defined. So I wanted to just post the DSM's definition of binge eating disorder, and then talk a little bit about how BEDA merged with NEDA. So they're under one. They used to be separate. And according to the NEDA website and the DSM-5, BED is characterized by recurrent episodes of binge eating and eating larger amounts of food in a discrete period of time than most people would in the same situation. Other associated behaviors include eating very rapidly, eating past the point of being full, and eating when not hungry, and eating alone. This behavior is coupled with intense feelings of a loss of control, shame, and guilt. BED, is diagnosed when an individual engages in binge eating on average for at least 1 day a week for 3 months. These are some binge eating disorder statistics. 60 to 80% of folks with binge eating disorder have childhood trauma. 3 to 5 million people suffer from BED, and BED is 3 times more common than anorexia and bulimia combined. The majority of those with BED are women, although BED is the most common eating disorder among men. 60% of folks with BED have at least one other diagnosable mental health issue, including PTSD, depression, and anxiety disorders. These are some of binge eating disorder BED's influencing factors. One of the reasons why I chose this disorder was because I'd run into it quite a few times in community health, and I wanted to see if there was a correlation between not having enough food and poverty and the potential impact on influencing developing a disorder. In the book, I read about how poverty and food scarcity significantly impact the development of BED. Research shows that there's an increase of eating disorders, particularly BED, when people have had the experience of being unemployed or underemployed. Poverty is a major childhood stressor, and food is available as a soothing mechanism. Food becomes scarce or unpredictable, enforces a cycle of restriction, increasing the likelihood of binge eating when food is available. People of all shapes and sizes can have BED. Body image ideals contribute to body shame, stigma and shame from non-binary gender expressions. Trauma increases the vulnerability for an eating disorder in general. Understanding and treating BED. Humans are inherently dopamine-seeking, and food activates dopamine. Therefore, at the core, nothing is broken here. So I really liked that the author of the book focused on the strengths of the individual. They've developed the eating disorder out of survival in a lot of ways. So most people with BED have unmet needs, trauma, anxiety, or depression. Therefore, they're seeking out a survival response to feel better. Therefore, it's not an addiction, so to speak. Clinically speaking, the effects of dieting or deprivation are by far the biggest contributors to increasing the reward value of food. So the mind cannot tell the difference between a diet and famine. And with dieting, the body sends more of the hormone leptin, which signals hunger. So it's our body's way of increasing survival. And we've touched on that a little bit in the class so far. about how dieting or deprivation works on the brain, but that was also in the book. Clinically speaking, having permission to eat all foods, not restricting certain types, lessens the binge eating episodes. So, like, not telling yourself you can't have sugar or you can't eat a certain kind of food. Treating BED with awareness. So, things that are helpful are building body awareness, eating without restriction, which in the book they talk about is trusting yourself, listening to the body's desire, acceptance, eating without rules or morality. There's no good versus bad food. Compassion for self, and reducing shame. Some harmful things are the weight loss industry, which is a $61 billion industry. Weight stigma. The CDC repeatedly finds that the lowest mortality rates are among people that are put into the higher weight categories in the BMI. So the fundamental findings directly dispute the weight loss industry's need to convince us otherwise. There was a large study done that they had referenced in the book, and it just completely threw out what we were told with in regard to the BMI. And then research indicates that 97% of dieters regain the weight within 3 years. So it's just a really toxic cycle. Some things I also liked in the book were the 5 practices. So this is something that is used in treatment and as a support. And those are to honor the impact of history, so a person's trauma. Binge eating, for the most part, is a person's flight response. Also, she talks a lot about meeting binge urges with POWR, which stands for pause into presence, open and allow, wisely consider, and respond with care. This process helps the client regulate back to the window of tolerance. Escape the mythology of thin, take back your body as a home, and build resiliency for long-term recovery. There's a disclaimer in the book that it's not treatment, but it's a supplement and a support. So these are just 5 practices that she likes to use with her clients. BodyWise is a program resource for BED. It was founded by the author Amy Pershing, and that's the website. I went to the website and I noticed there's free clinical training, online courses, and digital seminars for clinicians. There's free virtual consultations, individual therapy, 8-week trauma-informed, weight-inclusive group support, referral for assessments for higher levels of care, and nutritional services, podcasts and interviews, and book recommendations. So it's just a really good resource to have. An additional book that I didn't get as into depth with, but that had a lot of good information in it, was Beyond a Shadow of a Diet, The Comprehensive Guide to Treating Binge Eating Disorder, Emotional Eating, and Chronic Dieting by Judith Matz and Ellen Frankel. And a couple of key takeaways was the diet rebound cycle, which I have in the slide, can be a little hard to see. It is negative thoughts, diet restriction, deprivation, rebound, binge eating, and then shame. And so it's this cycle that people get into. The intervention for the clinician is the establishment of trust, because these disorders carry a lot of shame and internalized stigma. These are some helpful resources for community building. Most of them I found in the book that I referenced in my presentation, but Fatitude, which is a movie combating fat phobia, they have local screenings available. I have Center for Body Trust. It's a professional training center that offers retreats and forums with focus on dismantling systemic weight stigma. I have the National Alliance for Eating Disorders free support line. I always like to be able to utilize a free support line for people to have help on the spot. I also found Fay Nutrition, which helps you find binge eating recovery treatment both virtually or near you that's covered by your insurance. And then a Washington-based treatment support group. Wanted to have a local one on there as well. These are my references. I have the book that I talked largely about, the BodyWise program that Amy started, the definition from the DSM, and then the other book that I didn't get as in depth with, but it's Beyond a Shadow of a Diet. And then a great podcast if anyone has time to listen. It's the Emotional Eating and Everything Else podcast. And the episode I would suggest is Understanding Binge Eating Disorder with Amy Pershing. So thank you.